Okay, everybody. Well, welcome to the session on solutions to scale and manage your CMMC consulting and assessment activities. I'm Tom Leahy. I'm the head of sales and business development with SureShield. And attending with me is our product strategist and CEO, Sanjay Kumar. We have both, our team has been in the compliance and risk and security business for each of us about 30 years. So a fair amount of background in these domains, and we really appreciate all of you taking the time to attend the session today. As you know, some significant activity and significant opportunities for those of you who are getting involved in the CMMC accreditation process. So what we'll cover today, we've done the intro. We'll talk just briefly about the current state and timelines. Many of you of course, are well aware of those. Just dabble a little bit on what the market opportunity is for those of you who are participating as RPOs in RPs. The different types of roles that you have in that environment, and what are some of the services you may be offering. At the conclusion of that little component, we're going to take a brief poll to ask some questions about what you as an RPO or an RP, the type of services you plan to provide to your OSCs. We'll talk a little bit about some of the challenges that will be faced, of course, because it's a big opportunity. Scaling is going to be a challenge, but a big opportunity. And then we're going to talk to you a little bit. Dr. Kumar or Sanjay will take over and talk a little bit of how you can leverage technology to manage the services you're providing, how a solution from us can assist you in that process. We'll go into a product demonstration, and then we'll take questions. And at the conclusion, after the questions, there will be one more poll offering any of those here who are participating the opportunity to trial this platform. And it will require a brief follow-up from myself to get that scheduled, as it probably takes a couple of minutes just to help you get acclimated and up and running. So I ask in the beginning, if there's an interest as you're going through this, to please be prepared to let us know. I'll ask a question whether you would like a trial, and then you'll have the opportunity to indicate yes or no, or maybe later, and then we will follow up with you appropriately. Also, just so that you know, the content of this presentation will be provided to you in a follow-up email, as well as the content of the webinar, the video, the recording of this webinar. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. And again, thank you everyone for joining. As you know, it's a lot of things are happening in this environment right now. The process is beginning to heat up. Many of you have attended some of the town hall meetings that the CMMC has been conducting. I know last year they the last session, they talked significantly about OSCs making sure that they go out and start seeking help from their RPOs to get them ready. As you know, all suppliers that want to continue to operate in the DoD environment are going to have to get certified. And it's very clear, it may be becoming a little bit more structured now, but many of these suppliers are very unfamiliar with the process, and they're just beginning to seek services. And as we know, all will need to be certified by 2025. And it's better for them to get going on this sooner rather than later, because anytime you can actually get them through that process and tell them they're already certified, I think it just is going to put them in a better state to win new contracts. And of course, this affects the over 300,000 providers in the DIB. That's the estimated number of primes and subcontractors and providers that are servicing this particular institution. So what are the opportunity today for you as an RPO? Obviously, in your capacity, you're helping these organizations get ready and make sure that they're in a good state so that when they do go through the process, they're going to pass. The last thing they want to do is not pass, because as we know, it will jeopardize agreements that they have in place. And today, there's some market information that estimates that this could be close to a $15 billion market by looking at what their a quote unquote potentially average spend would be from an OSC to either seek services or get new processes in place at an average of $50,000 a provider. And of course, that will vary based upon the type of provider and the level of maturity that they are going to go for. But clearly, it's a huge, big opportunity from a servicing perspective. And what are some of those services? Obviously, they're going to need to have compliant assessment services and reporting. They'll need to have tools in place to help do security and vulnerability scans, as that's a critical part of a number of the controls. They'll need to have critical data identification, or COI identification and protection services, helping them understand where they might be at risk with that and putting in good processes. They'll have to be looking at managing their downstream vendors and having good controls for that, as it's not just what they have to do, but also their downstream vendors. And compounded with this, many of you may be familiar with the 889B oversight and monitoring process, but this is another initiative that goes beyond just the DoD. It's for all the federal government, and basically says anyone that's doing business with the federal government cannot be doing business with a particular group of banned entities. Today, most of those are companies and their subsidiaries in China, but you can expect in any of these types of initiatives that there will be more that will be added to that list, potentially more countries. And so having processes in place to make sure that you're not introducing any of that type of technology into your environments will be important. So what are obviously the roles of the RPOs and RPs, or the types of services that will be provided? Obviously, you're going to help them prepare for the certification readiness, and that's probably not a one-time step. You're going to need to do some regular assessments to see where they are today and where we need to get them to go to help them be ready for that accreditation process. Obviously, in that process, you're going to identify compliance gaps. Just a quick note as we go into this and we talk about technology. While these organizations have to be preparing for CMMC accreditation, today they need to be complying with the NIST 800-171 requirements, and that's a self-assessment utility. So in both cases, they need to be looking at and having folks that can help them identify where there are gaps and helping them close those gaps. And part of that is looking at where you may have security vulnerabilities, where there are holes in your system, where they are, how risky those are, and then having processes to help them fix and remediate those issues. We talked a little bit about the need to help execute strategies to protect the CUI data that they are receiving. First of all, doing the proper processes for marking that information, which a lot of them, many have not been doing that great a job of. So helping them make sure that they understand how to do that. And then tools to help them actually protect that data. Just knowing where it is one thing, making sure that you have ways to protect that is another. And of course, things like complying with the 889B as well. So what it ultimately leads to is ongoing consulting and support services that you can be providing these folks, as it would stand to reason that many of them are not going to be, they're going to need to get these assessments and evaluations done first, and then they're going to have to start closing those gaps before they throw their hat in the ring to get the certification done. And as part of the ongoing, obviously also helping them meet current requirements like NIST. So before we go into the next slide, we want to take just a quick poll. As we know, many of you, obviously, as an RPO or an RP, There's a variety of different service and offerings you may be planning to provide or are providing to your the OSCs that you'll be working with. We just wanted to get a quick sense of what some of those services are that your organization may be providing. And we'll give it about 30 seconds for you to go ahead and answer those particular questions around this. It is a multiple service or offering component. So please go ahead and answer, and we're just going to give it about another 10 seconds. And we'll go ahead and end the poll. Great. So with this, it looks like the majority of you for sure will be 90% of those who are on this, who answered the questions, plan, Sanjay, to do compliance assessment services. And then another 40% of those as well will be also offering vulnerability scanning, identification, and remediation services, as well as helping with the controlled unclassified information. And then a smaller number of those will also be helping with 889B oversight and vendor management services and other services as well. So thank you all for those responses. I can share those results with you briefly. And then we'll go on to the next slide here. So as part of your opportunity, obviously, I don't want to say it's a land grab, but there's a lot, because there's 300,000 providers in this ecosystem, there is a huge significant opportunity for you to be providing, to garnering a number of different clients. And what will be some of those challenges to be able to scale that up to handle as many as you can? Obviously, you'll need to have tools that will be repeatable for you, and as you conduct the services you provide. You'll want to have things that will make it easy to collaborate. As a distributed, today in this pandemic with a lot of remote work being done, you'll want to have tools that will allow you to do things remotely, to be able to collaborate without having to necessarily be face-to-face, or to provide services that don't necessarily require you to be on-prem. You'll want, obviously, to have tools that can help you manage all your clients and services centrally, so that you just kind of have one area to go to be able to manage all the activities and tasks you may have with the folks you're working with. And you'll want to do that in a way that doesn't significantly tax your labor expense. The more that you can service or use tools to limit the amount of labor, obviously will lead to a healthier bottom line for you. And then you want to be able, of course, to be able to efficiently report and help your clients understand where they are and where they need to get. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sanjay, and he's going to talk a little bit about how you can leverage technology and to do that, to meet some of those requirements.
Sure. Thank you, Tom, and good afternoon, everyone. As Tom has already indicated, there are a number of different type of activities that you all will need to perhaps be involved with directly or indirectly together with the organization, the OSCs that you're serving. The platform that we have actually created is a comprehensive integrated suite of solutions that can either be used independently or together to serve multiple different functions. So I'm just going to walk through a few examples of some of all of this, and then highlight some of the applications that are actually can be availed of based upon what you're interested in through what we call our partner portal. So for example, underneath the assessment section, even though we have a number of other frameworks for the purposes of the DIB, you would like to basically have the CMMC and the NIST frameworks activated, and we do provide both of them as part of the compliance assessment tool. That tool can also be activated for you if you're serving other customers with other frameworks, for example, HIPAA or the NIST CSF and the like, for maybe healthcare clients or some others. You also have a solution that provides for doing continuous vulnerability scanning integrated together with the compliance audit framework. The integration is key in terms of identifying the evidence to support the requirements of the practices that you're scoring or the NIST standards themselves. We also leverage software where it's possible at the endpoints to help identify CUI data if it is marked as such. And as Tom pointed out, that in itself is an exercise of education and work together with the OSCs to first of all educate them in terms of how best to basically mark some of all of that information and data. And then we provide the tools that can actually not just monitor where CUI is actually being used or stored, but also the movement of some of all of that data. You can also use the tools that we provide to monitor compliance with 889B Act as well. So the different solutions that would apply for you would be ComplianceShield. ComplianceShield allows for automated assessments, and it's automatically crosswalked with CMMC. So if you're currently doing a NIST assessment, all you have to do is sync it up with CMMC, and you would automatically be able to score against CMMC and be able to crunch out all of the required reports on behalf of your OSCs in terms of the POMs and the SSPs and the like. So all of the report frameworks in the way that they need to be provided are constructed in the tool for you to have available for your end customers. Security Shield is the solution that allows you to deploy and implement a scanner within the different networks of your client. It's a cloud-based scanner that is deployed, very easy to deploy to allow for continuous vulnerability scanning, remediation, and the workflow that is required to close those vulnerabilities. HackShield is the tool that allows you to deal with the CUI data and protection. And our solution Integrity Shield has a module built very specifically to deal with 889B oversight and monitoring.
Yeah, and Sanjay, as we go on, just for clarity with the folks, as we will go into, and he'll talk to about briefly in the next slide, we provide this to RPOs like you. We work with a lot of MSPs, and many of you are MSPs, but we do it under the auspices of an environment we call PartnerShield. And PartnerShield is a platform that's customized specifically for you as an RP to allow you to launch any one of the services that you may want to provide through SureShield.
Okay, and as Tom earlier pointed out, what we do is actually provide for our MSPs or RPOs in this case, what we call a PartnerShield portal or a PartnerShield environment. This is literally a self-service portal that is completely white labeled for you, as well as white labeled in front of your own end customers. So your customers will basically have a white label product from you with us white labeling it in that way. You are able to manage all of the clients within one interface, work with them, especially given COVID today, gives you actually a remote work environment, remote management environment for all of your clients, with your clients also being able to have access to the different solutions that you have activated for them, and for you to be able to collaboratively work together with them using this particular portal. You can activate new services with just a few clicks, and Tom is going to highlight some of all of these, as well as the workflow automation capabilities. There's very good comprehensive reporting that we actually provide, and we continue to add more reports and comparative analytics as our user base continues to increase. So overall, we feel that the PartnerShield portal has great value inherently in the way that it is actually architected and structured to provide for a lot of capabilities that you all need to service your end customers.
Great. And with that, we're going to go ahead and give you a quick product demonstration and overview of this portal. And then, of course, take on any questions that you may have at the end. I'm not sure, I think all of you are able to view the chat, but there was a question about whether we were offering this to the C3PAOs as well. And the answer is yes. We actually have another webinar coming up shortly next week in regards to that. Understanding that some of the responsibilities and duties of the C3PAOs are maybe slightly different. So they can be using, there's different ways they can take avail of the same solution for conducting the activities they need to be doing, because of course they're going to be out actually making sure and going through a process to give people that stamp of approval or certification. So the utility of what we have here is good for both of those groups in the marketplace, with a slightly different use of certain product offerings as well. So let me exit here, and I'm going to open up and go into our security, our PartnerShield solution. Can Sanjay, everyone see that? You can see what I'm presenting?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'm signing in under the auspices of this quote unquote Acme RPO. Okay, and when I come into my portal, the first thing I'm going to have are, think of this as a dashboard of activities. So with the different customers that I might be working with, there may be different tasks or things that I need to be doing with them. So as you begin to work with different customers, this would be the initial that would give you any alerts or any tasks or any things that you need to do to actually communicate with that customer, kind of, you know, putting things at front and center. Now, what you'll notice, if I just click up here and type customer, under the auspices of Acme RPO, I have these 4 different companies that I'm working with: Stanley Aeronautics, Sky Services, Colossal Contracting, and Semper Company. And each one of those may have different services that have been activated for them. So very quickly, you can obviously go and get at the customers that you need to get at. I want to first focus a little bit on some of the back-end tools that you have as an RPO, in terms of the management tools you have to get services activated, to get customers set up, to do any kind of white labeling that you would like for those customers. So you'll see here, when I go to the tools section, there's areas that will allow me to do things like co-brand or add the logo for that particular company that I'm working with. I can brand your own site will be branded as an MSP under your structure. Certain units or certain companies may have sites and departments underneath them. So if you want to segment those, you can set up various different sites and departments under those customers. But quickly, I just want to go into the activities of, for instance, managing customers. Okay, so we know that we have those 4 customers in this particular demo environment. You'll note when I come in here, I have the ability to do a couple of things. So one, if I were to click on this customer and I wanted to take more actions, I'm going to go ahead and edit. And let's just say this particular customer, Stanley, maybe wanted to add a new service. So it's really a pretty simple process in terms of the name of the organization, a default admin. And then under here is where I can go ahead and add or subtract the different types of modules that I'm going to activate for the client. One other thing to note on these is that you can set up, when you are working with your clients as an RPO, you can have the opportunity to have a trial account so that they can trial it out briefly, a short demo account, or obviously an active account as someone that you're actively working with. But you can see here, if I were to just go and pick under the auspices of the different solutions, the different offerings that I may want to add to those particular customers. So it's simple as just clicking a button and then adding that as a new service offering for them. And once that's done, that's activated for you, and then you can determine how you're going to activate that for your customer. I'm going to close out of here. And the other is, so that is activating additional services for existing customers. You also have the ability to very quickly set up a new customer, right? And it would just take you through the same process. So it's going to ask you for some information on that particular organization. It's going to have a default admin. It's going to get assigned to that. Now, a couple of things also to keep in mind. You have the ability to determine how your OSCs or your customers have access and view into this data. In some cases, we have MSPs or RPOs that want to control all that themselves, and they just limit the information they provide to that customer to things like reports. Or we may want to give them their own environment so they can actually conduct activities. And when they're doing that, then I can even, that's where it gets into things like assigning work either within my own RPO or actually assigning some work out to the OSCs that I'm working with. And again, it would work the exact same way. You would just come into that, pick the modules you're going to be working with, and assign those to them, just like we showed when we were activating new services. Okay, so those are some of the setup tools. And again, as Sanjay pointed out, this is all web-based. So all these activities can be conducted remotely in this portal. So I'm going to go back to my home, and I want to actually walk through now a few of the products so you get a sense of how those products can be used and how they're being used by the RPOs that we work with, and as well as clients that we work with as well. So I'm picking Stanley Aeronautics. And you'll see over here, when I go to my apps section, it's going to show me all the applications that have been activated for that particular client. We're going to start with the ComplianceShield manager, but we've also, just so you know, when we go into the initial view in this particular customer, we've also integrated this with the security scanning tools. So if that had been activated for you, you would see not only just the controls that you're monitoring, but also the scans that have been run on that particular customer. So that's what I'm seeing in this area. But for purposes of this demonstration, you can see when I've come in here, it's color coded. And really that red is to highlight areas that you really need to obviously take action on. And many of those could be because there's 15 non-compliant controls in here. So for the purposes of this demo, we have gone ahead and activated the NIST 800-171, as well as the CMMC level 3, maturity level 3 controls. And the reason that number is 240 is because, as you know, there's 110 that are NIST and there's 130 that are CMMC. Obviously, though, 110 of those CMMC controls are the exact same controls you have with NIST. So we'll talk a little bit about how you can manage that process so that you're only doing activities under one control framework, and then you can synchronize those together for the reports you might need for both purposes. So you'll see to the right, very easily, I can go ahead and segment and look at this data any way I want. If I just wanted to look at my CMMC controls, then you can see the view that I have has changed. If I wanted to just look at a particular domain, for instance, maybe it's awareness and training controls, then it's going to show those to me. And it's also going to allow me to either go in and begin to do work on those particular controls. I can even do things like, let's say I'm going to collaborate with my client and I want them to answer these particular questions. I just take the option of saying more actions, and I can go ahead and assign those to an owner. So that owner can be either within my own RPO environment, or it could be an owner with the client that I'm working with. If you don't want them to be set up as an owner, you can even go ahead and send this out in a web form that would basically allow you to type in their email address and then send that out. And it's a web form that would allow them to go in and answer the particular questions. So let me show you a little bit about how that particular process works around these different areas. As we mentioned, we've mapped all of these controls together. So I'm looking right now, you can see here in this, I'm looking at awareness and training, and you can see in both cases, these two questions, one is a CMMC related question and one is a NIST related question. They're actually the same particular question, right? And really, all I have to do is go in, open up, and begin to walk through the process of answering these particular questions based upon, guidance information that I have. Now, at any given point in time, you can go ahead and add comments. You can upload evidence, proof of evidence, which a lot of these will require to not, if you're answering something that has been in place, you oftentimes need to be able to provide proof of evidence that that is in place. And so you have the ability to do that. You have a knowledge base that you can come down and work with. This gives you, for instance, the practice guidance as the implementation guidance. It will also, as I will fail to point out, we also provide in this portal a set of policies that are mapped to the different CMMC and NIST controls. Now, those policies can be utilized. You can modify them and have them customized for your client. You can also upload your own if you have your own in place into that, but they'll be mapped to the controls. So you can see if there's an issue with a control, you can also see what the policies are that are related to that particular control. And if I were to just go in and look at this security and awareness training policy, you'll note within here that it's also showing me where all those, the controls that are addressed in that particular policy. So that is the ComplianceShield solution. And as I mentioned, it has the ability to synchronize with your NIST and CMMC controls. I'll just show you that briefly. So as you are answering questions, you'll notice here that there's an area called Syncnist and CMMC. So rather than you having to answer each and every question, you can decide to work with one or the other control. We show you where the mappings are to those particular controls in both environments. And if you've answered one, it simply just requires you to say sync responses, and it will go ahead and synchronize the most current responses to the most current answers. And that also includes the comments. It also includes the proof of evidence or the evidence information as well. So again, that doesn't need to be done multiple times. Let me just give you a quick view of some of the reports that you will get out of that particular system. So I'm going to go to ComplianceShield. And you'll see we not only have compliance reports that you have can be shared, we also have the DFARS reporting requirements. These will help you, for instance, in outputting the system security plan, the information that comes out of the system that would be involved in that plan, and then there's some other information that you'll need to add. We also provide the plan of action and milestone report, which will take any of those issues that have not been implemented or are non-compliant and allow you to put together a timeline around when those are going to be done and have those ready for submission, obviously for the NIST 800 and 171 requirements, and as would be expected with the CMMC requirements as well. We also have the report, the assessment score that can be run. So again, for current needs and future needs. And if I run this, it's all based upon a point in time. So depending on how I have answered or how my client has answered on those scores, you can see it aggregates a compliance score. And that on the NIST side, it's up to 110 based upon the assigned values of those scores. And the issues about whether, if it hasn't been implemented, that will be a negative score to you. If it's implemented or compliant, that'll be a positive score. And obviously you want to move and get your clients to that 110 environment. So again, this is a continuous compliance solution. Anytime you come back or your client comes back to do an update to things that they may have done to improve, then it will be reflected in the score at that time. All right. Those are the different types of reports that you have. Now, a couple of things to also note in the reporting. You can go ahead and assign, I'm just going to run a report on compliance for CMMC, but you can go ahead in any of the types of outputs that we have. You can schedule these reports. So if you want to actually have them run on a particular day, day or time, and you want it to go to specific individuals, depending upon how you've set that up, it will automatically generate those types of reports to them. You can download these in Word, you can download them into Excel, you can generate PDFs, and you can also download it into PowerPoint. It will take the graphics information and allow you to use those. So in this case, I've just run a CMMC level report, and you can see the total number of practices, what's compliant, what's been implemented, and have a full, and you'll even have a compliance trend to see how you've been trending over time if you've been doing multiple assessments and gap remediations. So I'm going to move out of here quickly, and we're going to go briefly into our security scanning tools. Again, as we pointed out, this particular solution is a remote, it's actually a downloadable utility that you can put into your, the client's environment. It only needs to run on a Windows machine. And what it is a scanner that will automatically go out and identify all the hosts within the environment. And then you have the opportunity to schedule and configure how and when and what you want to have scanned. So it doesn't necessarily have to do everything. You can set up different configuration or scan schedules to run on different IPs in your environment. But as it does that, it will actually, as scans are run, it's going to give you a visual as to where your areas of issues may reside. And it just gives you different ways in which you can look at that. So for instance, in this particular group, we have 40 host assets that are running 567 pieces of different software. And within that software, we've identified 4,000 different vulnerabilities. And we've also got remediation guidance on how to remediate and what's going to be the process for remediating those issues. If I just wanted to quickly give you an idea of one way to go ahead and take a look at this, we can go in and look at, let's just say, I just want to look at the critical vulnerabilities that have been identified in here. So it's going to help me see that. It's going to show me on this particular IP, I have 896 total vulnerabilities. If I were to click into this machine, for instance, it's going to give me a summary of where all those issues are. Sorry, it's taking a little while to load up. And then it's also going to provide me information on what are the services that are running on that particular environment, what are the installed applications, what are the vulnerabilities that are there, and most important, what are the remediations that need to be done. So it gives you full guidance on what are the processes that need to be done to remediate that particular activity. And again, once you've run those particular scans, it provides fabulous output that can be used for reporting to your customer to help them understand where issues may be and how to go about and think about addressing those issues. So I'm going into, in this case, within the SureShield solution, there's roughly about 20 some odd reports, and all those reports can be run in different ways. So for instance, if I wanted to just look at top remediations, we know that within an environment, there's a lot of stuff going on. We want to know where our biggest bang for the buck is and where our biggest problems may be. So in this case, I'm running a top remediation suggestion report. And when I go ahead and run that report, it's going to give me back information on, in summary, and in terms of here's the 40 hosts and here's the vulnerabilities that were found. Here's the different breakdown of those vulnerabilities. What are those by severity? And then it will give me solution information for basically saying, hey, if I applied 20 remediations to 34 of the hosts, it will help remediate almost 90% of the vulnerabilities and significantly improve my risk profile. And again, this is tracked over time. It will even give you information about what the expected time is to conduct and take those remediations. So it can help direct a client on what we might need to get done to help remediate a lot of their risks. And again, scanning and vulnerability and reducing exposure is a critical component of meeting framework requirements of CMMC. Again, lots of different reports that can be run here. And as I mentioned, we'll be asking any of you that are interested and more, we'll go into all these in much greater detail for you. So that is the security scanning tool. Just briefly, to give you an idea of how the Hack Shield, this is the CUI identification solution. Again, it's an endpoint solution that gets run on endpoints. And once it's in there, you can schedule it to set the type of information you want it to be looking for. So in this example, there are 57 devices with 2.8 million pieces of information, and really it will show you the apps that they're running on. If I were to go in and look at this, you can see this Hack Shield solution actually can be used to identify a whole number of different types of critical data, from credit cards to PHI to CMMC marked information. So if I were just to segment that down on this, you can see it's identifying the different types of CMC related information that I have in this environment. And then it will also show me what devices that is sitting on. So oftentimes, a number of our customers use this first to do an initial review of the environment to help the customer understand where some of this critical data may lie that they don't know about. And beyond the utility of identification, then on the back end, there are tools that allow you to write rules as to how data that has been identified as CUI or whatever that be, how that can move within an environment. So for instance, you want people to have that are working on projects to be able to have access to those documents. However, if they tried to take those documents and email them off to someone outside the organization, if you've put encryption rules on that, they can attempt to do that, but if someone on the other end tries to open it, it will be completely encrypted and not be viewable. So it really is a solution that actually helps meet the protection of CUI data requirements that are part of, obviously, NIST and CMMC as well. And then lastly, before we go into questions, because we want to make sure we have adequate time to do that, the last solution that we'll just touch on briefly is the 889B monitoring tool. So what we have done is aggravated all of the companies and their subsidiaries that are banned from being able to provide services to any type of government entity. And that obviously is through the act is passed down to the OSCs and any subcontractors that are working with them. It doesn't matter if those organizations are using that utility outside of a federal contract. As long as you have a federal contract, those companies are not supposed to be having any of that technology in their environment. So what this basically does, and I'll just give you a brief view of how you can actually take a look at the different banned companies and what the subsidiaries are that are in there. What it will do And ideally, folks will use this. They'll run a scan of their environment to identify all the assets. And our system will go and identify MAC addresses within there. And when it does that, it will then match that up to the banned vendor list so that you can instantly see if you have anything in your environment that needs to be taken out. And this can also be pushed on down, not only to within your environment, but it can be pushed on down to any subcontractors or vendors that you may be working with, or they may be working with as well. So it really helps and makes it fairly simple to make sure that you're in compliance with this requirement, because, otherwise, and again, the larger an organization is, the more assets and more systems are out there. Sometimes they may not know are being introduced into the environment, and they can put a contract at significant risk, because if you are working with those, you're not allowed to be. So if I were to just take a look at this, it's just going to show me who those 2 supply vendors are in this particular area that are banned, and therefore I can go ahead and now take some actions on what I want to do and how I'm going to get those out of the environment. So I'm going to go ahead and pause here. I know it's a fair amount of information to digest, but what you can see is actually the utility for working with this is quite simple. As I mentioned, you can set up a situation for you so that your client also has access to this environment, so that you're seeing it and then they're seeing their own individual environment. In the case of you, or in this case, me as Acme RPO Services, I can obviously go ahead and see all my clients. If I have my other clients that are in here, they're only going to see the ones that relate to them. So in my case, I can go ahead and look at the customers I have. I've got these 3 underneath me. Stanley, in the case of people at Stanley, would only be seeing their information. Okay, so I'm going to pause and we're going to open it up to questions. And Sanjay, I'm just going to relaunch. Tell me if you've got the slides back.
Yes, we do.
Maybe we can go in and let's make sure we take some, you can go ahead and finish this part up. And then we'll want to, first of all, take that poll while we're answering any questions. All right. So Sanjay, this is or I can go ahead and do we lose?
You can go ahead.
Okay.
You can go ahead.
So just briefly, obviously how our solution can help is helping grow your organization and helping your organization be profitable in that process, allowing you to take on more clients at lower operating costs, to manage them all in one environment, provide the services that they may want, or new services you may want to activate for them at the click of a button, and allow you to very easily distribute that work. And as you know, CMMC is here. The market opportunity is huge. I believe there's another town hall meeting next week that's going to kind of give us an update on where the C3PAO process is at, as more and more of them are getting certified to start doing their accreditation processes, which just means that there's going to be a greater demand for the type of services you all are providing. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and launch that poll, and we'll take on any questions that folks may have in the next, we still have 10 minutes left for those of you who have questions. But if you will be reached out with information on, with information on how you can contact us, you will be receiving follow-up emails with the presentation materials and the webinar. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll while we take on any questions that may be there. And you're more than welcome to indicate whether you would like to have access to this portal. We're making it available to you as participants for a 1-month trial. And after that, we can talk to you around what are some of the parameters with the agreements that we have with the RPOs and the MSPs that we're working with. So let's go ahead in while we're here and answer any questions that you may have. Okay, and there's actually a couple of questions, and I think maybe some have already been answered. There were a couple of questions about what are the models or the pricing models, or how do we work with RPOs. So what we provide, the solutions have slightly different pricing. One thing to note with the bundle that we provide with the ComplianceShield offering, we're bundling both NIST and CMMC together. In that offering, it's very inexpensive, and it's a great tool for you to conduct your assessments with. Our RPOs get a discount off of what we consider to be the manufacturer suggested retail price, and those discounts start at 20% and go down even as far as almost 40%, depending upon the products and the services that you may be using. And we can provide that to you. For those of you who are interested in a follow-up, we can provide you kind of the outline of all of those, of the cost for those, but really good ways to offer great services and actually some pretty significant margins for you as you are providing those services as well. And just one other quick question, because we didn't go through it necessarily in the demonstration. Sanjay, can you explain how the scanning utility works?
Sure,
briefly?
Sure. So I just noticed one more question that's regarding the scanner, and let me actually go to, I don't see that question anymore. Where did it came in through the chat. So let me answer that. Is the vulnerability scanner agentless? No, it is not agentless. There's a cloud-based agent that gets deployed within a subnet or within a network of your within the entity that you're wanting to basically perform the vulnerability scans for. But it's completely cloud-based and it's deployable via the cloud. You don't have to go on-prem to basically do this. Regarding the NIST 853, I will let one of our other team members actually answer that, but any type of framework can be accommodated within the compliance solution that we have. Today, there is, we have it for 171, but if you want to basically also have it for 53, we can actually do that. That's not a problem at all. In the sense of the, was there another thing that you wanted me to address, Tom, on the scanner?
No, just, I think you got to it. How is it deployed? It's basically launched. And I think one other thing to just point out with the scanner is you might want to talk about who we use, who we do this through.
Sure.
Not one that we developed ourselves.
Right. So we use Rapid7. We basically utilize Rapid7 behind the scenes, but then we add a onion layer. Think of it, an onion layer on top of that to make it cloud deployable, and for you to basically relatively very easily deploy it within the environments that you would like to scan.
Right, and then we've added additional functionality on top of that and reporting, and then of course what we do, we cloud enabled it, which makes it much more easier to deploy for the customers that we work with. There is another question. I think you helped answer that, Sanjay. Just a quick point. While we're showing this, the ComplianceShield, we were showing specifically for CMMC and NIST. We have many different frameworks in there. We have HIPAA, we have PCI. If you're interested in knowing what all those different frameworks are, we can provide those to you. because you may also, of course, be doing business in other environments where you need those. And beyond having them yourselves, we actually, because it's a platform and how we've set this up, it's very easy for us to modify and customize specific assessments or audits for folks as well, which we've done for several clients who might have specific types of audits that they want to do or assessment scores. You can leverage the platform to do that as well.
Yeah, so there's a question regarding custom requirements and controls. The answer to that is yes, this can actually be customized at the level of the RPO if you have like specific requirements in the form of a framework or a control set that you would like to basically put in, and those will only be deployed for you as an MSP for your end customers. And that also applies to maybe perhaps other specific content that you might have. Let's say you have very elaborate policy, templatized policies and procedures as knowledge content that you guys have basically developed for your own organization that you provide to your customers. You can actually have those loaded up, as an MSP RPO to provide for a given framework to your customers for whatever cost that you provide. So the platform, and I think there was another question that basically says that, yes, so essentially we provide a self-contained environment to literally allow you as an RPO to service your end customers for a variety of different needs that are there for you to effectively and efficiently service your end customers. Compliance, vulnerability assessments, to data protection, to people, through the Integrity Shield and the other vendor shield type applications, really more allow you to basically have a more comprehensive picture, right? And also have it all within the same environment. And that also gives you the power to upsell multiple solutions with your bundled services to these customers.
Right. And then there was one other question, Sanjay, about does the policies self-populate and can you brand them with your logo?
Yes, you can. I think you actually showcase that. So they automatically get branded and you can populate whatever different policies by framework. So the policies, HIPAA policies are different than the policies for NIST and CMMC. So they're by a particular framework. And I just see another question over here. Do you support audit engagements for like C3POs or only assessments? I'm not sure where that question is headed, but I'll let another team member answer that.
Yeah, so it's possible to use the tool only to audit customers. That is, you could send out questionnaires, ask them to fill it out and then assess them for their readiness or not. It can be used both ways. It could be used for audit preparedness as well as to conduct audits.
Yes, and I think we were also mentioning that we do have a session that will be running for C3PAOs. And as we said, the utility might be a little bit different. So if part of it is leveraging the platform to actually send out to the customers to begin to do those assessments, as Chandi just pointed out, you can push all that out to them as well, or you can utilize it yourself. Those are some of the workflow tools that you have that make it easy for you to collaborate with the clients that you might be working with.
Yeah, and just to follow up to Jace's question about NIST 53, yes, Jace, we do have NIST 853 in our comply tool.
Okay, well, we're getting close to the end of the hour. I do have the poll still open. Well, I see a number of you have indicated that you would like to have a trial, and some are saying maybe later. Only one has said no. So for those of you that have indicated yes, just note, beyond getting the information from us with the content and the webinar information, I'll be reaching out to you personally to schedule some time to get you set up and walk you through that process and make sure everything works and discuss what services you want to have enabled for trialing. And then for those who have elected no, obviously you'll be getting information, and should you in the future down the road want to try this out, please, we're more than happy to help and be there to support you. So I'm going to go ahead and get ready to close the poll. One more time, if anyone else wants to indicate a yay or nay, and otherwise we'll go ahead and finish the session. We really appreciate everybody showing up today. We wish you the best in this big opportunity, and really most importantly, helping these organizations to make sure that our critical infrastructure and services are protected. Thank you, everybody, and we will be in touch.
Thanks.
Thanks.